the link and I'll send it across to you once it's done. Okay, so that's saying we're live, but it's not live on my screen yet. So, hello, YouTube fandom, all three people.
Give this a try.
Right, okay, that seems to be live now. So,
Nice.
I shall. Yep, there we go. That's definitely live because I can hear myself talking back to myself. I'll pop it in the chat window for you, and I'm just going to tweet it out as well.
Cool.
Great. Good race.
Yeah.
It was a good race. I only really got a chance, as I said to you on the phone earlier. I only really got a chance to watch it a few hours ago while I was supposed to be working. But hey ho, it's good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Managed to stay away from the result.
Yes, it's not easy nowadays with social media.
Yeah. Well, I try and stay off social media as much as I can when I'm at work.
Yeah.
Generally, just drags you in. You end up not getting anything done. So
That's it.
right, I can close down Twitter now. And I'll just load up the live stream on my tablet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll get going. So I've already done the first half of the show with Carl. I say with Carl. He recorded Sunday and I recorded yesterday. And then I just cut in bits. He just had a load of stuff and he goes, "What do you think, Tom?" And then left me a break. And then I recorded my bits. I wasn't watching it till 11 o'clock at night and he was only free until 8 o'clock. So it was like,
right. That's fair enough.
Not happening.
No.
That's how we had to do it last week as well. But hopefully next week we'll be back in person. We'll see. Right, where is the live stream? There we go. Unless I'm wearing the same clothes 2 weeks in a row, that would be embarrassing. Cool, we are live. Excellent. Okay, so we'll just drop in from where we were, and I'll start recording on my computer as well. You good to go?
I'm good to go.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you for that, Carl. We move on now to the IndyCar section of the podcast, where we have back with us once again the amazing Mr. Phil Kinch. Hello, Phil.
Hello, sir. How are we doing?
Good, very good. Full disclosure, I only watched the race a few hours ago, so it's been a very busy few weeks. But as I said to you a moment ago, I managed to stay away from the results, which was great, and I was able to watch it and be fully gripped right until the line, as it was a grandstand finish on something that looked like it was going the way that the Formula One went at the weekend. When no, it was a very close finish.
It was actually. Mid Ohio is not normally known for being the most exciting races on the schedule, but that's obviously changed on Sunday. It's more normally of a strategical one, it's who's got the right number of pit stops and done the right number of tyres on laps and everything. But yeah, a proper run down to the end that really I think caught everyone by surprise, which is good fun. Makes a nice change from Mid Ohio.
Yeah, I apologise in the background if you can hear my cat yowling away. She's been cornered by the other two, and she's having a bit of a whine. So apologies for that if you're picking that up. But yeah, so that's kind of distracted me a little bit. But yeah, so the qualifying wise, before we get into the race itself, Newgarden third pole in a row. He's on a bit of a roll, isn't he?
He is. He's turning out to be the qualifying king, but I think that's also more to sort of prove the fact that he's the fastest out of the Penske quartet, and also the most. I don't want to say desperate. I'm going to say more driven than the others to try and get that win finally for them. But it was very obvious. I think the closest person to him in qualifying was Colton Herta. And we know Colton is capable of taking poles and he's fast himself, so no issues there. But with Newgarden, it was definitely a case of, he's had 2 poles already, third time lucky, he's got that. He was fastest in all the sessions and just absolutely gapped everyone in the final fast 6. So yeah, brilliant to see him doing that and get up there third time in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. He's certainly seen the one Penske driver that you would actually put money on winning a race at some point this season. Because Pagenaud was coming on strong towards the end of the Indy 500. He's definitely he's definitely the one for me to watch. Certainly for the championship wise as well. Would you say? I mean, we'll get into the championship later on, obviously, but I mean, yeah, Dixon and Ward. And Palou all beaten by Ericsson, who's
Yeah.
seems to be, after his win earlier in the season, seems to be finally kind of getting to grips with IndyCar.
I think he's gelled. I think the win in Detroit has been the sort of door that he's been waiting to open, and he's definitely improving. Obviously, he had the small faux pas at Road America where he got caught out by going slightly wide off the track. But yeah, he was definitely a surprise to take third on the grid behind Herta and Newgarden during qualifying. And again, as we'll discuss, race pace as well. Something seems to have clicked. I think finally that first win for him has done the trick, as it does for everyone. And he's definitely moving up and getting himself into contention as well. So brilliant performance in qualifying from Ericsson. But it's the guys he's beaten. You've got the championship leader, he's the second place in the championship, and also his teammate who's third in the championship. And they just weren't able to do anything. Ericsson's lap come right at the end, right in the dead of qualifying, and outpaced all three of them. So it just goes to show, if you can do it, you've got the tyres at the right time and you're out on the track, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, the start of the season, I was on another podcast, Script Strip podcast, doing an IndyCar preview, trying to pretend I knew something about IndyCar, and back then I said this is a big season for Ericsson because he doesn't, it's. It's his third season now, is it?
Yes, yeah.
So it's. I mean, I tuned in a couple of years ago in his first season, and I think the first thing I saw from Ericsson was I tuned in, and within 10 seconds of tuning in, he was spinning in the pit lane. So it's. And I did particularly rate him when he's in Formula One, so that's great to see that he's starting to finally get to grips with that and push forward in the championship, and beating his far more experienced and highly regarded teammates as well, which was great. So have you got a review for us for the race?
So yeah, I've managed to watch the race live as always, because if I don't, the wife will threaten to divorce me. She's not carried through that threat yet, but I have made sure she has to because I want to watch it live as well. So yeah,
it's the opposite in my house. She threatens to divorce me if I make her watch it live.
That'll change in time, honestly, Tom. Just changes in time, I promise. So no, it was a quite exciting opening couple of laps actually, because we had the first two. The only two actually safety car periods of the race. So the first start we had on, as usual at Mid Ohio, they start down the back straight and head into turn 4 as it is. For some reason, the kink is turn 3, but we won't go into that because that's an American thing. And straight away you had contact from brains on James Hinchcliffe. Sorry, remembering names. From Hinchcliffe, who managed to catch teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay, who's having the worst luck ever. I think it's just getting worse for him. And then as he spun, he also managed to catch the returning Felix Rosenquist as well. So not a good start. And this is all in the run from turn 4 into turn 5. So a couple of laps of safety car to get the cars going. Now Ryan Hunter-Reay got himself underway again. And was several laps down. Rosenquist got himself underway and was several laps down. Hinchcliffe, I believe, also got himself underway. I'm just going to check as a reminder. So
I'll cut that bit out. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I was checking because I couldn't remember. So yeah, it wasn't. It was a sort of typical Mid Ohio start. Everyone funnels in. At one point, you had like 3 wide going into turn 4. Never ends well. Never ends well. So after a couple of laps, they decided, right, we'll give this a second go. And again, coming out of turn 4 into turn 5, you had Scott Dixon and Will Power get together. And after being shown on the replays afterwards, there was a slightest touch of contact between the front right wheel of Power and the rear left of Dixon, and that's it. Power's gone round, and unfortunately, because he put his foot down, spun up the tyres, lots of tyre smoke, which always looks great. He was then collected by Ed Jones in the Dale Coyne Racing Vassar Sullivan entry, the lovely black and yellow Sealmaster. And that put him out as well. So Power was out on the spot. That was him done after several laps of under safety car. Ed Jones was out as well. And then the race finally got underway at a third time of asking. And basically, Newgarden, the guy's on a mission. he's absolutely, he's lost out twice. It's not, potentially been his fault. He was on a mission and it was very clear. He went off into the distance and it was down to everyone else to keep up with him and stay with him. The only time he was headed was when it came to pit stops, and that was where Colton Herter, who was running second place, he was his closest challenger for a long time. And whilst there was some racing that took place down the lower in the order, it seemed a quite quiet race until we had the second pit stops. From that point, Marcus Ericsson surprised everyone and came out in second place. He's, on his tyre choice, and he was hunting down Newgarden in the final 6 to 7 laps. Now, this is, Mid-Ohio is a strategic race normally, depending on, what tyres you've been on, how many laps you've run them on, how many safety cars, what fuel strategy you've run to. And suddenly you've got a grandstand finish where Ericsson is hunting down Newgarden. And we're thinking, could this possibly happen to the guy a third time in a row? I don't want to quote Die Hard, but it's like, for the third time going, Newgarden suddenly thinking, how are these people so much quicker than me at the end of a race? All I want to do is win a race. So as we're fully aware, he managed to hang on to the win. And I think there was the sense of relief from both himself, from Roger Penske, who was there, and the team was completely evident. He took his first win of the year, Penske's first win of the year. That's helped him in the championship standings. As we know, Ericsson's taken second place. So he's continued his form that he had from Detroit, and we'll ignore the Road America faux pas. Behind them, you've got Alex Palou. He finished on the podium despite starting 7th, but he was quite happy in qualifying with how he finished, and knew he had a good car for the race. And then behind you sort of had this train for the second half of the race of Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, Graham Rahal, Romain Grosjean, and Pato O'Ward, who unfortunately, as much as I know you're a fan, Tom, I think he had the wrong tyres towards the end of the race. So he was on the option tyres, and he just seems to fall down the field a little. So he came home in 8th place, after originally running up behind Rossi and Rahal. So unfortunately, second place in the championship as he stands still, Pato needs to sort of gain some ground when they go racing in a few weeks' time. And then completing the top 10, you have Santino Ferrucci in the third Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan entry. At the moment, as we understand it, that's the last time we'll see him, but it's always possible he could reappear later in the season. He's done a very good job of taking top 10 finishes in the races himself. And then completing the top 10 is his teammate and Graham Rahal's teammate, Takuma Sato. As we're saying, Andretti seems to have a nightmare. Herta seemed to be the fastest car, but then obviously he's fallen down the way due to strategy. He came home 13th in the end, behind Scott McLaughlin, who's had another good, decent race on a road course. So, as I say, it turned out to be a pretty good race, one that not, Mid-Ohio is normally one you've sort of got to think strategy-wise and try to follow it. But actually, it turned out to be a cracker in the last 10 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go back to the start, I want to talk about those incidents which obviously started things off as I removed the cat.
I was waiting for the cat to make an appearance.
Yeah, he does every week. Yes. So the first incident, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Hinchcliffe, and Rosenqvist. How did you see that? So my opinion, it looked like it was a tad ambitious from Hinchcliffe, and seemed to be another error from him in a season that just seems to be riddled with them.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I say, you had lots of cars trying to go 3 wide into turn 4, and then obviously turn 5 you've got to funnel out, otherwise people are going to go off, as we've seen many a time. And unfortunately, I agree. Hinchcliffe was very, very over eager to try and make up some places on the start. Knocked out Hunter-Reay, his teammate, which the guy doesn't actually need at the moment. Hunter-Reay's got the worst luck, I think, this year. And then also managed to catch out Felix Rosenqvist, who's back after missing the second Detroit race and missing Road America, looking for a good race himself and taken out completely, which put him towards the back of the field for the rest of the day as well.
And was Ed Jones was involved in that accident as well, wasn't he?
No, not that
or
one.
Was that the next one?
That's the next one. So that's the other one that caused a second safety car. So
yes, of course. Sorry.
Fortunately, like I say, Hunter-Reay, Rosenqvist, and Hinchcliffe all managed to get going again. And in the end, Hinchcliffe managed to cross the line in 17th place. So, scored some points on at the end of the day, but another very poor, race performance, and also affecting 2 others as well. So what I like about IndyCar is they want the guys to race, and a quick dig at the Austrian Grand Prix. They're not so worried if
Dig
they're
away.
trying.
Dig
Yeah,
away.
they're not so worried if they want to overtake each other on the inside, the outside, and use the odd bit of gravel. They're not so worried about penalising people for everything. But yeah, a racing incident, but definitely one that Hinchcliffe could have avoided. It's one of those situations. If you can't make it on that first lap, you just need to hold your position or find a gap and then work your way forward afterwards. Because if you're not finishing where you started in that first lap, or you've not made those places up, you're gonna, if you're hitting someone, you're gonna be in for a long day.
Yeah, I mean, how do you rate his season? Is he under pressure because he's I know he's a fan favourite, but he just seems to be making lots of errors and not getting the results this season.
So, from what's been said lately, there's already the rumor mill is already in place, because at least two of the places at Andretti Autosport they reckon could change next year. Hertz has already signed up on a multi-year deal, as is Rossi. So Ryan Hunter-Reay and James Hinchcliffe are under pressure. And I would say Hinchcliffe, as he's a full-time entry this year, he's just not managed to keep up with them. There's been times, in qualifying, he's been able to push it through, but he's just not pulling up the performances that I think's expected of him with the experience he's had. I think a lot of this also comes down to the fact, he had part-time rides last year. He's got a full-time ride this year with Andretti Autosport, one of the powerhouses in IndyCar. So there is all that data, there is all the information you can work with, but he's just not able to, for some reason, pull in those performances. And he's normally the last of the four cars when you're looking down the leaderboard during races at the moment.
Yeah, he's quite often behind the Meyer Shanks as well, which are obviously the single Meyer Shank, and obviously Elio Castroneves when he is there as well. So it's I know it's not technically an Andretti, but they do share that partnership, and it looks like worrying times for him, which is a shame, as I say, because he is such a fan favourite. Yeah. But going to the second incident then, Dixon and Power, that looked there was definite contact.
Yeah, I sort of sat there going, oh, there's no contact, and then they got the onboard, and it's like, hang on, they've touched ever so slightly. If there was a Formula One steward involved, they would have penalised Dixon and stuck him a 5-second penalty like they did in Austria. It's a sticky one for me, because again, it's that same turn 5, which you can go around the outside, but you need the assistance of the driver you're passing, which is great if you're lapping someone. They will pull all the way over to the left and you can go around into turn 6. This is Power and Dixon. It's not going to happen. They're both racing. So I see it's down as a racing incident. This is where I sort of like and dislike IndyCar's way of doing things. They let the guys race. They want a good racing spectacle. They normally provide it. But there are times you sort of look at the stewards' decisions and think, okay, if this was somewhere else, somebody would either be given a time penalty or being asked to do a drive-through and go from there. There is the slightest bit of contact. That sends Power round, but I think Power then makes his own day even worse by just flooring it. Like I say, plumes of smoke coming out of the rear tyres, and then everyone is trying to avoid everything. It's almost like a thing from Days of Thunder again. Sit there and see the smoke and think, right, where's the car on the other side? And unfortunately, Ed Jones caught the front of his car, destroyed his suspension on the left-hand side, and just completely broke the front of Power's car himself. So it's a racing incident. That's what the stewards are happy with. You could argue that if Dixon hadn't touched him, they could have done it, but it's one of those that will go on. I think it's definitely not improved Power's way of thinking, because he's been, I'm going to say he's been a hothead this year, but he's definitely been fired up to do the best he can, and he's had a very unlucky run, which I think is continued here at Mid-Ohio. For him, I think the summer break is definitely going to be one where he's going to recharge, reset, and come back to see what he can do in the second half of the season. So, yeah, an iffy one, but it could have been avoided. But it's, again, one of those situations on a restart.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't include him in my Penske drivers that could potentially win a race this season, which is probably going to anger quite a few people. But I mean, I know he was very close earlier in the season, but I just mean, like, for the rest of the season now, I don't see him really contending, which is a real shame. But I mean, at least now Penske have finally got that win on the 50th anniversary of their first win in IndyCar. Was from what I think I heard on the commentary, which is interesting stat. So, I mean, if we look at the race winner, then Newgarden dominated obviously until the second stop. So why was Ericsson chasing him down so much? Was it was he just looking after the car and then kind of let it get a bit too close, or was it Ericsson just doing so well?
I think Ericsson, he had a better stint in the second half of the race, and he was able to jump out and leapfrog both Dixon and Rossi as it stands, and Palou as well. So I think he just had a better stop compared to the others. And because of that, and being on fresher tyres, he was on the primary tyre, the Blackwall tyre, and he had a fresh sticker set of those as well. So he was in the ideal position. He's fully fueled up to go to the end. He's got a fresh set of tyres. He can go for it. And to be honest, I don't think this is the last time you're going to see something like this from Ericsson. He's got the bit between his teeth after that win at Detroit. It's definitely opened a door for him now and showed what he can do. And he had a sniff of a win on Sunday, and he went for it. And I don't blame him. You know, any driver, if you have a sniff of a win, regardless of how far behind you are, you go for it. And the gap was being brought down, tenths, half a second in the last lap, as the laps were ticking off. To the point of, if you could have said, right, I mean, this year they cut the distance down to 80 laps. It's normally a 90 lap affair. If they'd have kept that 90 lap affair, I think we'd be talking about Ericsson having his second win in Newgarden and losing out for a third race in a row and possibly thinking, why am I jinxed? So in one respects, great speed from Ericsson, great on the strategy and having those tyres left. He ran as long as he possibly could. So there was obviously a bit of fuel saving going on as well. And yeah, he was just able to chase down Newgarden and actually give him something to think about, which he hadn't had for the first 3/4 of the race. He was able just to go out and lead at the front, build a gap and keep everything under control, which is what Newgarden is best at doing. But Ericsson definitely kept him honest, and it was clear that he was hunting him down towards the end and unfortunately ran out of laps.
Yeah, I mean, Lee Diffie was getting very excited when it got down to the last lap and the gap dropped down to under a second.
Yeah.
The way I saw it, I thought he was marginal on fuel because you saw he wasn't using his push to pass at all, and Ericsson was just closing in on hand over fist, and but then he started using it when Ericsson got closer. So I'm not entirely sure why he allowed Ericsson to get so close before starting to use that push to pass the defend, because he had a lot more available to him than Ericsson did. But I suppose it's easy when you're looking at the graphics and you can see all that. Yeah. That was very, very impressive. Very impressive. But I mean, you say it's normally a race of strategy, and obviously you've got the softer tyres normally bringing performance over the harder tyre, but that didn't seem to be the case today, did it?
No,
Sorry.
It turned out that the option tyre, the Red Bull Red Bull tyre, was actually the more dangerous one to use, and this is often the beauty in IndyCar itself, where you've got the two tyre types to use. The danger is one of them is going to go slower or not last as long. Now, in some cases, the Red Bull tyre can be the best tyre to use, and the primary tyre is the one not to have, and they'll use it as for as short a stint as possible. In Ward's case, and I feel the pain each time I keep mentioning this, but it's a case of he took those on the last pit stop and ran them to the end, and they just couldn't hold on. So definitely a case on this one that, despite some work being done on the track, which was good to see to try and make it more grippier, the option tyres just weren't able to hold on as long. And from that, those that were running at the end definitely lost out. It was good tyre to be on at the start and get it out of the way, and that seemed to be the better strategy for those that were following that at the front of the grid.
Yeah, and obviously that affected O'Ward's race as well. It was very, very much damage control for him.
Yeah.
I think he was in the early part of the race. He was making places up, but yeah, towards the end, just more kind of hanging on really, and definite damage control there. How do you rate his race as a whole, and for Alex Palou as well?
So for O'Ward, I think it's an opportunity miss. They didn't get it right today, and Aaron McLaren SP have shown during the year they're able to get it right. He hasn't got race wins for nothing. He's worked hard and earned them, and the team's also been able to provide him with the strategy at the races he's won to be able to do that. They've given him the car. The car's had the performance. He's been able to do what he's been capable of doing, which everyone has known since he stepped up to IndyCar, and saying, look, I can do this. The problem is everyone's going to have an off day, and O'Ward, unfortunately, has had an off day on this case. He was really racing up through the field, and then, like I say, as soon as he had his second pit stop and put the reds on, that sort of undid him. He's taken a top 10 position, which helps points wise, but yeah, it's almost a case of what could have been if the tyre strategy had been different. But as he started down in 17th place, it's definitely a case of, we've got to do something different here. We've got to make a strategy work and do something different to what the other guys are doing. And for Ward, you can see the thinking, but it's definitely not worked out for him on this one.
No, no, definitely not. Another performance that was very very unlucky, but I rated the performance as a whole was Colton Herta.
Yes.
His pit stop was he 25-second pit stop, and then
Yeah.
on the second pit stop he had another 6 seconds because he stalled it,
Yeah.
and yet there he was right at the back of that train, pushing towards the end. Looked like he might have got some solid points. I mean he did get points obviously, but looked like he could have been up there with sort of O'Ward. And Grosjean and everyone. So good, solid performance all around from him.
Exactly. Now, Herta had the speed in qualifying to stay with Newgarden. He was back with him, and he was able to make sure that he could keep him honest in qualifying. So the speed was in the car, and he was the fastest Andretti driver out there. That being said, his first pit stop, as he said, had a problem refueling the car. He lost 25 seconds, and that's your day done. Colton's got the speed. We know that he's a race winner. We know that he is a star of the future. He's going to be fighting for a title regardless. But it's also, having had a bad day, he's kept going. He's had the speed in the car. He was competitive regardless of his two very bad pit stops, and was able to keep the car going and remain inside the top 10 and push as hard as he could. I think in the end, with the second stops as everyone was filtering through, that's more where, the pit stop time he lost paid out for him. He lost almost over half a minute in both his pit stops combined. So if you imagine you sort of take that out of his race time, he would have been inside at least the top 5, I'm going to say. If not, if the pit stops have gone the way they should have done, possibly hassling Newgarden more than Ericsson was.
Yeah, it's another strong performance from him. It's strange to see that he 7th in the championship still way back. He's over 100 points behind Palou, which just blows my mind really when you think how impressive he's been this year, and to be so far back. It's a bit of a shocker really, and only a few points ahead of Rinus VeeKay, who's missed a race as well. So it shows how good a season Rinus VeeKay's had as well. So last thing then for this race is Rossi and Dixon just didn't seem to be. I don't know where their pace was. What happened to them?
It's weird. I mean, again, in qualifying, they were both inside the Firestone top 6. They were where they needed to be and looking good. And you're thinking, right, Dixon's won from a lot further back than 5th on the grid as he started on Sunday. And Rossi, again, you give him a sniff of the top 5. He is there. He's capable of doing, and he'll push forward. But it's almost as if, Newgarden disappeared off into the distance. Herta, until his pit stops, was keeping the gap to him. And they just didn't seem to make the progress forward. It's almost as if, yes, they're definitely in their car. They're definitely racing. They're racing as hard as they can. But it wasn't enough. It's like Newgarden was on another level. And Dixon and Rossi were almost sort of tied with a piece of elastic band, you could say, for most of the race. And it was very clear, again, in the last part of the race after the second pit stops, where they were line astern. Dixon, Rossi, you had Rahal, Grosjean making his way through. Obviously with Ward falling down with the red tyres as he was, but you just every time you saw them come out to the keyhole at turn 2, you just had this train of 5 or 6 cars, and right at the front were Dixon and Rossi, and you sort of think, okay, that's part of the reason why Formula One introduced DRS. Oh yeah, we'll take the wing out and give them a bit more speed. They'll pass each other. Fortunately, they haven't got this issue in IndyCar, but it is one of the situations where, the cars are equal. There's not a lot of downforce on them, and you've got to be able to pass the driver yourself. Dixon's a hard charger and experienced racer. Rossi's a hard charger and experienced racer. The two of them aren't going to make any mistakes, and you can sort of see in the end they decided, look, we need the points. We either finish, we'll take what we've got. But it is very, you sort of think, okay, there's times when Dixon has just rocketed through the field. Rossi has just rocketed through the field. And in the end, whilst they got good finishes, just sort of thinking where, it's almost as if they've just made a place up each from the grid over the course of 80 laps. You sort of wonder where that went. For Palou, sort of coming back to him as well, he had an ideal race, considering, starting seventh on the grid. He, even when they interviewed him after qualifying, he was smiling and happy, and they said, surely you can't be happy with this. He was beaming and quite happy. He said, I'm fine with this. This is great. We've got a great race car. We know what we can do. And Palou kept himself inside the top five during the race, and then made sure that, towards the end of the race, he was on the right tyres and was able to take that top three finish, which just helps him increase the gap he's got in the championship, especially with O'Ward not scoring well, Dixon not scoring too well, whilst Newgarden's got his win. Pagenaud also didn't do too well for himself either. For finishing down in 14th. So Palou was on damage control on Sunday, and he did it very, very well. And I think it's now a case of just maintaining that gap as he goes into the second half of the season after the summer break, and just taking the points, which in IndyCar is how people win championships. If you've got the gap, you maintain that, you score what you can, you make your strategy work, and at the end of the year, that's normally what's got you the title in the bag, is because you've been able to pull out those performances when you've needed them.
Yeah, the consistency king of Scott Dixon is normally what would win you the championship there, but he's definitely seems to have learned from Scott Dixon, and also the other very experienced people within his team as well. He's clearly made a big step forward from last year. I mean, I know he impressed in the Indy 500 last year, and that's what got him his ride at Chip Ganassi, but looks like I mean, what, 6 races to go? It looks like it's cruise to the finish, really. I mean, not so much a cruise, but just a case of he doesn't need to go out there and get box office results. He's just got to maximise his weekends and get what's on offer, and then he's definitely going to be in that fight towards the end of the season. The pressure is definitely on O'Ward and Dixon and Newgarden behind to close that gap.
Yeah.
So go on then. Who would you put for your driver of the day for the day? Then it's.
I'm not normally a Penske fan, but I am going for Newgarden because he's finally managed to do it, and he did it in dominating fashion until sort of being almost snapped awake by Ericsson in the last few laps. So Newgarden is going to be my driver of the day. Did everything you needed to, put it on pole, fastest laps, maintain the gap at the front of the field, and showed the normal sterling race control that he's known for when he's out front. And it's also got Penske off the mark as far as getting a race win, and it's helped him in the title chase as well. So, yeah, Joseph Newgarden is my driver of the day for that.
I completely agree. I'm glad you said that, so we didn't have to argue about it, because that's I'm with that as well.
Arguing's fun.
I always find this award now for the Dick of the Day. I always find this very difficult in IndyCar because everyone just seems so nice. You don't have a you don't have a Kimi Räikkönen taking out Vettel on the last lap, and you don't have anything like that. So it's very, very difficult to award a Dick of the Day. So who would you nominate for Dick of the Day if there is one?
So I am torn between James Hinchcliffe for his incident that got the first safety car out and Will Power, because I don't, whilst Power's trying to get the car turned around, he caused his own retirement with that, and Ed Jones had nowhere really to go. So I am torn. I'm probably going to go with Hinchcliffe, because the golden rule in motorsport is you never ever take out your teammate, and that's exactly what he did. I'm going to go for Hinchcliffe on this one.
Yeah. I mean, I thought for a second there we were about to have a discussion, because I had Hinchcliffe as well. So that works out.
We're going to have to work on this before. We should.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the trouble is, I don't know enough about IndyCar to really have a proper argument with you. If Carl was on here, he could have an argument with a ham sandwich. He's that good at creating arguments. So when we get Carl back on here, he'll, especially as he likes Will Power as well, purely because of the name.
Right.
That's the only reason. But yeah, okay. So we'll go with Newgarden, Hinchcliffe, and as Carl's not here to argue, did you happen to watch the Formula One of the weekend?
I caught most of it.
Okay. Now, I know you're not a massive Formula One fan.
I'm not a massive fan. Now, I will admit I was doing some of my preview work for the series I follow, which is racing this weekend. But my stepson, every now and then, he's just got this habit of saying, "Oh, you've got to watch this." All right, have it on in the background. And suddenly I'm like, hey, what, they're doing this? And I'll be honest, I was chatting away to my downforce friends. There's normally a conversation going on in our little Facebook chat thing we've got. And I'm pretty spot on in every time making sure when Perez did something wrong, he was getting a penalty. I think I could have actually laid a bet actually on each one. I got it right.
Yeah.
But as I discussed with my stepson, my thinking is this. So it's great that Paul di Resta is saying in commentary, they're racing. We want to see him race. This is great. But the line comes of how much do you allow them to race? Now, in my opinion, that particular corner turn 4 at the Red Bull Ring,
Yeah.
if you defend hard enough going into the corner, it's not difficult. The other guy's going to go, right, I can't get you on the inside. I'm going to go around the outside. And it's ever so easy, regardless of what series, what type of car you're in or anything, to just let the steering go out a little bit slower than normal, just release the lock a little and force them to go off. And unlike a lot of circuits, which are tarmac, have the asphalt to give them the safety to give them the room, which would mean they'd run over the curb and be on concrete and probably come back on. The A1, the Red Bull Ring's got exactly what I like: gravel.
Yep.
Gravel stops cars or slows them down, and that's the idea of it. It's not there to be driven through. I've seen times when it's rained in races and people are driven through. But I also do agree that some of those penalties were also pushing the limit as well. If you're going to start penalising people, with 5-second penalties, because they're trying to overtake someone and they're doing their best overtake and the other guy is not allowing the room, which is well within his right to do, pretty soon the driver's going to ask the question, what can I do in my car when I come up to pass someone?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's more the consistency for me as well. I mean, I know they were consistent with the way they were delivering that in the race, but even if you looked at the previous race, the previous week, there was driving incidents that they weren't punishing that were far worse than what they were punishing. The reason I mentioned the Formula One was because we had our driver of the day for the Formula One was Lando Norris, and the dick of the day was Kimi Raikkonen. So, out of Lando Norris and Joseph Newgarden, who would you say had the best performance?
I'm going to go with Newgarden because it's a race win, but Norris definitely, I think, made everyone sit up and realise he's not a spark anymore. He's definitely in for the long run. And they mentioned that he's, the next, I'm not going to say the next Lewis Hamilton, but the next British driver to be something after Lewis Hamilton. I thoroughly agree. He's in the right place, the right team. He's got it all around him, and it's starting to come good. But I'm going to go with Newgarden because 2 races in a row, he's tried to take wins. He's been taken away from him for whatever reason, and he's finally got one after 3. So Newgarden is my pick on that one.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with you on this one, and it's not just because I'm a McLaren fanboy. I think Newgarden qualified on pole, great performance, led pretty much every lap of the race, bar I think about 7 laps or something, and then let someone didn't close it off, let someone close in on him, and if a couple more laps, he would have been passed. Yeah. Whereas Norris transcended the performance of the car, beat a car that he shouldn't have done, and should have beaten another car that he shouldn't have done through something that wasn't really his fault. So I would say Lando Norris on that one. So what I'll do is I will get Carl to cast the final vote, but I'll leave that as vacant for now. But we'll get Carl to make the final decision on that one. And then Hinchcliffe and Raikkonen, who was the biggest dick?
So on this, I'm going to go with Raikkonen because it was very clear seeing the accident when they played it back. Vettel was ahead. He was nowhere near to try and pass him or turn back into him to take his life. I don't want to say the brain fade thing because that's something that annoyed me back in the day from David Coulthard, but it's almost as if he's decided just to take the racing line and think that Vettel's that far enough ahead that he's got enough room, and instead he's taking the pair of them out. So I'm going with Raikkonen on this one.
Yeah, I think generally Formula One drivers are bigger dicks than IndyCar drivers anyway. So I would, and I'm not a Kimi fan at all. So it was just terrible. It was a terrible, terrible thing. But the worst thing about the whole situation was he gained a place by doing that.
Yeah.
Because he got a 20-second penalty, and was it Latifi got a 30-second penalty, and he was only a few seconds behind him. So he ended up gaining a position by doing that, which just seems balmy. But there we go. Okay, so we'll await Carl's decision on whether it's Norris or Newgarden on that one. So we look ahead. Then we got a bit of a break now, haven't we? It's a few weeks until Nashville. Was it a month's time? Nashville?
About a month's time, yeah, and they go to the Nashville Street Circuit. First time this is a debut event in IndyCar, which one of the reasons I love these sorts of things is it's a complete leveler. Anyone a debut event in an IndyCar race has a chance of winning it. It's whoever gets the car right through all the practice sessions and qualifying, and then gets the race strategy sorted and adapts to the different conditions. Absolutely looking forward to the fact they're racing over the bridge. And I love that sort of thing. So that's part of it. And it looks a very fast course as well, despite it being a street circuit. So I'll be honest, I've said this season long so far to those I've chatted to, I will really be surprised if Newgarden, if he hadn't have won Mid-Ohio, I've got him down for a home win at Nashville to see, to do it there. And I will be surprised if he doesn't do that. But then following that, we've got some great circuits that come up with it. They go back to the Indy GP circuit on the 14th of August for the second time of the year, because I've had to reshuffle the calendar due to COVID issues. Then we're off to Gateway on the 21st of August. So you're looking at three races in the space of August, within the space of 3 weeks, which is a tough one to push the guys, but it's something they've been able to adapt to before. And then when you get to September, you've got the same thing again, 3 races in 3 weeks. So they go back to Portland International Raceway. This is a favourite of mine. It's always provided great racing. And when they brought the circuit back in 2019, it was fantastic. I had a wonderful time with this. And it's great to see a good old-fashioned circuit like this. It used to be used back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, especially with the types of car you've got now, where downforce is reduced. So it makes them really hard work. It's a great circuit for overtaking, especially turns 1 and 2, the festival curves, which are infamous for God knows how many times you can have contact and people overtaking. So that's the 12th of September. On the 19th of September, they're off to Laguna Seca. Again, it's almost like Mid-Ohio. It's a strategy circuit. The place mauls tyres, so you've got to make sure you've got the right tyre strategy. But then there's also the possibility of great racing action, as we had last year as a championship finale. And then the one I'm looking forward to the most, again, because of COVID, it's been shifted from its April normal spot to the end of September, is the Grand Prix of Long Beach. I adore Long Beach. It's my favourite circuit on the calendar. This is why normally in April I will book off the Monday, because, just in case they're going to have safety cars and go past midnight. I think it's a fantastic idea having it as the championship finale this year. Obviously, again, they've had to swap the calendar because of COVID, but Long Beach tests everyone. It's the end of the season. It'll be the championship decider. It makes it even more important to survive what is historically one of the most difficult tracks on the circuit. And if you're a winner of the Long Beach Grand Prix, you are up there. So it's definitely a great way to finish off the season.
Excellent. Oh, well, I don't know much about the Long Beach track. It wasn't on the calendar last year, was it?
No, so COVID, because of COVID, it was off last year. Yeah. The last time they raced there was 2019. If you can find it, it was a fantastic move. Oh, I'm going to cough a minute, sorry. There is a fantastic move the last time they raced there from Sebastian Bourdais overtaking Scott Dixon, which Bourdais ironically was penalised for, but overtook 2 lap cars and Dixon for position. And then once he'd taken his penalty, did the same thing again, but just did it legally. Well worth a look. So, yeah, fantastic stuff. Long Beach has a wonderful history in IndyCar. There's some fantastic races, and it's well worth a look if you can find them online.
Excellent. That's my evening watching then, because I'm not going to worry about the soccer ball stuff that people keep talking about. I'm not going to bother watching that. So.
What is this football thing?
Who knows? Who knows?
Where are the engines? Where's the wheels and everything? Honestly,
yeah. No, I stopped watching football when COVID started because I no longer respected the players, and I couldn't cheer for players that I didn't respect. So no. I've not been a football fan for the last year and a bit. So there we go. Sorry, Reading FC. Nothing wrong with Reading in particular, but I just stopped following football altogether. So, yeah. Okay, so I think that kind of wraps us up for today. Did you want to give a little plug if anyone wants to hear more from you or see more from you or follow you on the socials?
Happy to. So, so basically on social media, you can find me on Twitter at Phil_Kinch, Kinch. There, I'm normally happily tweeting about IndyCar because that's one of the series I watch for fun. Although I think Tom's now got me into the pundit seat, which I'm enjoying. And otherwise, I'm normally talking about all things touring cars. So British touring cars, I watch for fun and enjoy. I'm the chief touring car editor at Downforce Radio, so I normally write about all manner of TCR series. specifically WTCR, the World Championship, Pure ETCR, which is the new electric touring car championship, TCR Europe, which is basically every team that can races across Europe in 7 different rounds, and they are frantic, exciting races for touring car racing. They're brilliant. And I also write about the home series as well, TCR UK, and all of this I do at Downforce Radio. Again, to look for that on Twitter, you just put at Downforce Radio, you can find them. We have a 24/7 radio station of podcasts and feel-good music. I'm going to plug Mike Reed because it makes me feel like a child every time. Well, it takes me back to my childhood even, sorry. Every time I sit there and listen to him every morning. And again, you can find all the information there of all the different series we cover. We cover IndyCar, we cover Formula One, we cover Rallycross, we cover Formula E. There's lots of different things. Great group of people there. What I will also plug is I got told off last time.
Oh no!
So I what I should have done was plug the fact that my 7-month-old granddaughter adores IndyCar racing, and I didn't say this despite mentioning everyone else in the family. So yes, the lovely Lexi at 7 months old will happily sit with Granddad and watch classic IndyCar racing, and is absolutely enthralled by it. And the hilarious part is that if they have a yellow in the race, she starts shouting at the telly because they're not going fast enough. It's brilliant. She'll start arguing with the pit, with the pit reporters and everything, whilst they're saying, "Oh, this is happening, and this is why this." And she's not happily. She hasn't strung words together yet, but she's happily gurgles and noises going out at a loud volume. And as soon as they go back to green, enthralled. So yeah, I got told off that last one. So hopefully that keeps the wife happy this time. But yes, you can find me on social media, writing about touring cars, chatting about Indy cars, all manner of things. I don't use Instagram a lot. I'm old.
No. Yeah, me too.
and Facebook, I normally just share my writings about. So, but yes, definitely on Twitter is myself, and also Downforce Radio as well.
Excellent. I can personally vouch for Downforce Radio as well, as I downloaded the app and had it on my phone, and was listening to it the other day. And it was actually the Mike Reed show I was listening to as well. So
spot on.
Yeah, no, it's when I run out of podcasts, that's my go-to spot when I just when I'm all out and I need something to listen to. Straight onto there. Bit of music, bit of podcasting, bit of motorsport chat. So make sure you check it out. Well, that's it for us this week. We may be back next week. We've only got the one race for Formula E next week. So it'll either be a short one or we'll get a guest on, or we might leave it till the following week. I'll put it up on the socials when we know what's going on. Follow us at Monkeyseat Pod. Go on the website, monkeyseatpod.com, and get in touch with us. Until then, thanks a lot, Phil, for coming on. And we'll see you